It's time to achieve a work optional lifestyle. This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, powered by Golden Years Financial. For over 30 years, Mark has been helping his clients to and through retirement. Now he's here to do the same for you. Reach out to Mark at 702-258-4455. Now, Golden Years, a roadmap to retirement.
Yes, and welcome to the Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement. This is the podcast, by the way. We're here to educate you, get all the information that you need. And one of the things that we try to do is take all these crazy financial headlines that you've been hearing about, you've been reading about and seeing, and breaking them down. Is it really worth the panic attack you give yourself, or is it just a lot of hype? Well, that's where Mark Cordner comes in. Of course, he's got over 3 decades of experience here in the financial world. Or if you have more questions, you want to sit down with Mark and the team, we make it real simple. All you need to do is visit gyfinancial.com. Now, Mark, I want to jump right into this because 2024, we're doing okay market-wise, a little rocky. You know, we know 2023, we hit some market highs. But then you have folks like Harry Dent, man. He's the guy at the barbecue that just brings everybody down. There's always black clouds. He says we are in for a crash of our lifetime. This is what he recently said.
These markets are stretched, especially with the biggest tightening since the early 80s, one of the biggest ever by the Fed. That will knock the economy down and lag, even though it's not showing yet. It's not showing it because it happens on a year and a half lag. Everything does. That's where the Fed gets in trouble, this big lag. Remember that the next wave down should take us back to the COVID lows, which is going to be down 50 to 60% for the various U.S. major indices.
All right, so he has all that to say, and I'm going to let you respond to that in just a second. But I also want to highlight that he says you should stay out of the market for at least 6 to 12 months and then jump back in after the crash. Mark, where do you sit with this?
Let's time that, huh? I don't know how to respond really with Harry Dent. I really liked his stuff when I was young. I've been reading his stuff for, 20, 25 years, and it's basically the same theme. He's always calling for some kind of catastrophe, as it were, and there's all sorts of doomsayers. There will always be chicken littles out there who are claiming the sky is going to fall. And I'm absolutely convinced the sky will fall periodically. That's just the nature of the world that we live in. And the more we listen to these Jim Cramers and Harry Dent types who are always contradicting themselves and always calling for us to do things, the more we realize that, frankly, they're often speaking for advertisers, or they're trying to sell a book or something, and they're pushing a particular agenda, which is usually in their advertiser's best interest and not in the best interest of the client. So what we know overwhelmingly, and I'm thinking of 3 different Nobel Prize winners who have written and done work on this stuff, what we know overwhelmingly is that no human being can accurately predict what's going to happen in the market. Truly, God alone knows what's coming in the future, and especially in the financial markets. We are so globally interconnected nowadays that when there's a hiccup in Beijing, it's going to have a ripple effect here. But we're so interconnected with so many trillions of interactions every given minute of the day that no human being can comprehend this. And so, truly, I say, God alone knows. I love the study that was done back in Russia years ago where they got a bunch of orangutans in a room. You may have heard of this. The study's been duplicated here in the States, but these Russian they put these orangutans up with darts to throw at a dartboard. They put them up against Russian stockbrokers, and the orangutans actually had more success with darts choosing the winning stocks than the Russian stockbrokers did. And the same study's been done here statewide. So this idea of trying to actively manage and trying to predict when to get in and when to get out of the market is absolutely silly. The truth is we need to build portfolios that can withstand whatever's coming. There's a lot to that statement, frankly. This is not something we stick our finger to the wind on. There's actually a science behind it. There are 3 Nobel Prize winners, again, that I'm thinking of, behind the idea of structured investing, which is what we believe in. And so the truth is we need to broadly diversify. So, for example, my clients are in over 45 different countries, 45 different free market economies, over 32,000 different stock and bond holdings, individual holdings. They're incredibly diversified in ways we couldn't be many years ago. And so when the person comes on the news and talks about the S&P 500 saying the market's down, and and maybe new clients get excited or anxious about this. The reality is what they're talking about and what you or what my clients have are two different things. And so trying to play this game that we can time when to get in and when to get out and where we need to be in a given sector, there's no human can do that accurately. So we need to broadly diversify. We need to rebalance our portfolios on a regular basis, and we need to think long term, meaning not the next 2 days, but rather the next 2 decades. And there's absolutely ways to do that. The other critical thing, frankly, is we need to look at what I call a two-pocket approach. And so historically, people have been almost entirely invested in the stock market, either directly through stock and bond holdings or through mutual fund type accounts. And they really haven't looked at incorporating principal protected accounts into the portfolio. I call it a two-pocket approach. And the value of having principal protection is that when the market turns down, as it were, when it drops, and especially in retirement where we're having to still keep pulling money off to buy groceries, pull money out of our portfolios, it's critical that we have another pocket to reach into. We want to reach into a pocket that is principal protected, that's guaranteed safe, where we're not losing ground when the market goes down, because that particular money is frankly not in the market. We can reach into that pocket during those bad times and buy time for our variable investments, those that go up and down in the marketplace that are volatile. We buy time for that money to be able to rebound so that we can reach into those pockets during the upswings. And so I'm a big believer in what some people call a volatility buffer, and that's this idea that I call two-pocket approach. It's being able to respond to whatever's coming in the world and not get neurotic because, Harry Dent wants to ruin the barbecue. I mean, I'm sure he'd be a wonderful neighbor, but I don't need the wet towel because I have a number of sources I get information from. I mean, dozens and dozens of sources, and some of them, frankly, my entire 31-year career have been beating the same drum, and that is next year it's going to be hell. Everything's going to fall apart. It's the old Chicken Little story. I say ignore those people. Build a portfolio that's designed to meet your volatility parameters. You shouldn't be able to know. There should be a risk assessment that's done. It's in writing that shows you what kind of behavior your portfolio should display in any given environment, with a pretty much 95% degree of predictability. What's the lowest it can go, what's the highest it can go. Mm-hmm. And we build it around our expectations around the things that we can't control.
Well, it's also about, as you talked about here, building a portfolio that meets your volatility parameters is speaking to knowing your risk versus reward, knowing how hot you are to the fire. And yes. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Tell me if I'm wrong. But 9 times out of 10, you sit down with somebody and you go, do you think you're conservative or do you think you're just, gambling it all? And they'll go, I'm conservative. And then you go, no. Actually, no, you're throwing it all out there on the table hoping for a win.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because your portfolio says the exact opposite of what you're telling me.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. I love your barbecue reference, with Harry Dent, because I had a friend once at a conference who said, these people, and he was referring to people like Harry Dent, he said, who were trying to time the market. He says, and that's like the guy who says, I'm watching your portfolio, and he equates it to, cooking a steak on a barbecue. I mean, what's he going to do? When the grease flare-up happens, it's too late.
It's done.
You can only respond after it's been singed. So this idea that we're watching things is really silly. We're in a reactive mode is the truth of it. So we just have to behave in a manner that can withstand whatever comes and quit this lie that we're going to be able to respond after the fact or predict when the grease fire is going to happen.
You're exactly right. But it's also about, when we talk about setting parameters, you might sit with me and I go, hey, my threshold, I'm just using numbers here, 1 out of 10. My threshold is a 4. We get to 4. I need protection. I don't want any more risk. Take me away. Somebody else might go, I'm kind of an 8.5. And that's how you know that you're working with a customized plan also, by the way, because you're able to set those parameters of how hot you want to get to that, fire when it comes to your risk versus reward. How much can you stand to lose? How much can you not stand to lose? And all these factors matter of how close are you to that retirement finish line? Because if you're in your 30s or 40s, Mark, you have time. But if you're 50, 55, we got to rein it back, right?
The one thing we don't have later in life is time.
Exactly.
So that is a great point. We've got some wonderful tools that actually help people, takes them through simulations where it helps them see really what their comfort level is, how well they could sleep at night with certain things happening, certain hypothetical scenarios happening in the market. So we can actually assign a relative score to them that says on a scale of 1 to 100, for example, this is what you're telling us.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's look at your portfolio. And how do we get the portfolio to either match that or to match what you need, which may be a little more aggressive or a little more conservative than what you're telling me? Because the truth is, people, for example, who have guaranteed pensions, who have income that's guaranteed for life, can think more aggressively, perhaps, than those of us who don't have those guaranteed pensions. So it's not just looking at what your stomach's comfortable with, it's also looking at these other realities. I can think of a client right now as as we're talking. I can think of a fellow who's a very esteemed scientist, works out here at the Nevada test site. That's where they do all the nuclear testing for the government for many decades now. Well, I work with a lot of people out there, and there was one in particular that, of course, I won't name, but he, a few years ago, started feeling like things were going to get really bad. And this was I think it was right before COVID. And so he said he wanted to pull back. Well, none of us could predict COVID, but he just had this feeling. So he pulled back, and he basically went pretty much completely to cash in his portfolio. And then we saw these incredible rebounds that took place. And what basically happened was he locked in these losses and he missed the total rebounds. And, he came kind of sheepishly back to me about 12, 18 months later saying, oh, I think I should get back in. I think I should get back in. And so we had to talk about, we can't be in this reactive mode, because what happens is we miss those single days, those big spikes in the market, which no human being can predict. And so we've simply got to build a portfolio that can withstand whatever's coming. And so there's an educational component to this, is what I'm saying. There's time that has to be spent and learning that has to happen, both on the client's part about how to invest, and on the advisor's part about what is this client really feeling. We need to be very respectful of those feelings. They've got to be able to sleep well at night.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time. I mean, having that added sleep insurance in retirement, having those 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep is all because you have a strong foundational, confident income plan, retirement plan. And, we're talking about right now, are we headed for one of the biggest crashes of our lifetime? According to Harry Dent, we are. We're also talking about how you can't time the market. You have to be able to be prepared that no matter what comes your way, your income and your portfolio are going to be protected. You're going to have that risk reward system. You're going to have that threshold of that, the volatility parameter that we're talking about here. So if you're interested in sitting down with Mark and putting together a risk analysis and really getting down to the details of how much risk are you really taking, God forbid there be another 2007, 2008, this is your opportunity. Go check out the website. Lots of great information there of how you can contact Mark and the team. Again, the website, gyfinancial.com. That's going to do it for us here on Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement, the podcast. We'll see you next time.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.